Right. Welcome to Shedcast, the shed hunting podcast for all things shed hunting. And welcome back for another episode. Today we have Ben with us from Canada, and we're going to be touching on a little bit different today. Shed hunting, yes, but we're going to get into some of the shed hunting dogs and then go from there. So Canadian Antler Dogs is what Ben runs. So we're going to hear some information about shed hunting dogs and get into that combo. Welcome, Ben. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for
Tell us
having
how
me.
you kind of give yourself a little intro there for us.
Yeah, my name is Ben Liversedge. I'm from Ontario, Canada. We live in Tiny Township, which is central Ontario. So there's a lot of misconceptions when you think about Canada. You're thinking about hundreds of deer and mule deer and all that, but that's in the western provinces. Ontario actually doesn't have a big deer population. So I grew up in eastern Ontario, grew up hunting with my dad, and now moved to central Ontario.
Interesting. That's interesting you say that because I do have that idea in my head. Like, man, there's a bunch of deer up there.
And most people do. Most people
Yeah.
do. But we're talking Ontario's a big province,
Mhm.
so it takes from here to the western end of Ontario until you get to Manitoba is about a 24-hour drive.
Wow.
And to get to Alberta, you're talking like 35 hours. So
Yeah.
it's a big province. But yeah, when you're thinking Canada, a lot of people think a lot of deer. But that's in the western provinces: Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta. Yeah.
Yeah. I've never really been up there. So that's one of the places I do want to visit or check out or eventually shed hunt one of these days somewhere in Canada.
Yeah, for sure.
Seems like a pretty cool place just in general. So how did you even get into shed hunting? When did all that start for you?
So I've been deer hunting my whole life, hunted deer a lot in my late teens, early 20s. And yeah, just deer hunting one day I found a shed, just randomly scouting for deer. I found a shed and I'm like, well, that's kind of cool. And from there, just got a bit more interested in shed hunting. And actually, I probably don't deer hunt as much as I used to now with family and dogs. We also waterfowl hunt, upland hunt, a little easier with the kids, but shed hunting is definitely something that we can bring the kids along and they really enjoy that experience as well. So I still deer hunt, but certainly not as much as I used to. But that's pretty much how I got into it. After that, started looking for sheds myself. Again, being a low deer population and all that, it was tough. And I had a dog that I had trained for a little bit of waterfowl hunting. That was back in 2000. I said, well, I heard about shed dogs and I had heard about it a little bit. So took that one shed that I had found and started training that dog in my backyard. And the dog was doing okay, but again, there wasn't a lot of resources available at that time to, how do I train a dog to shed hunt? So shed hunted with that dog quite a bit. Can't say I had really good success. So fast forward to my next dog in 2020, and that's when I said I'm going to do it seriously. There was a little more material available to train shed dogs, but certainly not a ton. And then we started looking into shed trials, and there was nothing really explaining how to train for shed trials. So it kind of snowballed from there. Like we trained that dog to shed hunt and developed a program and helped friends train their dogs to shed hunt, and it just yeah, from there was a snowball effect, and here we are now.
Yeah, and you're providing resources to others basically, right, through your website now?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
in December we released trainasheddog.com. So basically it was based on, I don't know if I should say frustrations, but people are, how do I train my dog? Can you help me train my dog? And I said, you know what? Like it'd be useful to have something that's step by step how we do it. So it might not be the way everyone does it, but it's how we do it, and basically help everyone train their own dogs using that online program.
And more of a proven method. And to your point, the lack of resources, like you said, and you're just offering that up. That's nice. I have a beagle, and we had the fake antler and some of the scent stuff. I started doing that when he was a puppy, but I didn't know what I was doing, so I never stuck with it. He knows antlers. He's around them all the time. If he gets off collar, he goes crazy and wanders off chasing squirrels and stuff, but I never trained him to, I didn't know how to do it, so I didn't go past that of just identifying what a shed is. I could say, go find the shed and he'll go look for it, but like that's as far as we got in the house doing it. He had a slight interest in it and then just died out there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's kind of like what I did with my first dog, right? I wouldn't call it a failed attempt because I learned a lot doing it, but it's certainly a process for sure to just keep up with it, like any other type of dog training, and be successful in the end.
Is it pretty specific to what antlers, or is it just like an antler's an antler? Are they going across for multiple species?
Yeah, so I'll tell you actually a good story from last fall. We were up
Hmm.
north. We were moose hunting, but at the time it was midday and I was grouse hunting.
Hmm.
So we do a lot of upland with our dogs as well. So we train them for waterfowl hunting, ducks, geese, and grouse, pheasants. So I'm hunting with my dog. I've got my shotgun, and then all of a sudden my dog gets birdie, and I'm like, oh, I get ready because I think he's gonna flush,
Hmm.
and all of a sudden just gets his nose down and boom, picks up a moose antler and
Oh,
brings it back. So it was like, and he acted like it was a grouse, or if it was a scent and antler from training, he acted the same way. So I think there's certainly differences in how they smell, like moose versus deer versus mule deer, but they still have, when they do shed, they have a little bit of blood, they have that wax ring, they have that, a bit of hair too. So I think it's pretty similar where the dog, well, obviously the dog will hit on it regardless. Yeah. So that was pretty cool. And yeah, I'm hoping to do more moose shed hunting with him later on as well.
that's awesome. It's the fruits of your labor. Wow. He just found that thing all on his own, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I thought he was getting ready. He's getting in that brush, ready to flush a grouse, and I'm ready to shoot. And no, it comes back for that antler. It wasn't very big, but it was still pretty cool
That's
to
awesome.
see. So I don't think there would be a difference, like significant difference that would prevent them from, hunting elk antlers versus mule deer, deer,
Yeah.
moose.
I
Yeah.
would think that they would smell pretty similar across the board, just being animals in general, you know? And
Yeah, I
then you
think so.
said that wax ring, the pedicle has that certain smell to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do those dogs do? How many sheds would they pick up in a season, or how many pickups are they doing? In this case, they're finding some stuff that you don't see, and they're able to kind of run through that thick underbrush without, like in our case, we get all caught up in all these bushes and there's stickers everywhere, but these dogs probably run right through that stuff.
They do. Yeah, they do. We use labs. So we have 4 labs.
Hmm.
So when we're going out, especially here, like I talked about earlier, not a lot of deer, so not a pile of bucks, so not a pile of sheds to pick up.
Hmm.
So having the dogs cover some ground for us is also very helpful. There's certainly properties that a shed hunt that we wouldn't have as much success with the dog, without the dog, sorry. So yeah, they're covering grounds. We also teach them to use their eyes. So I would say it's a 50-50 game. We teach them to visually recognize an antler and also by scent. Because realistically, if you only do scent and they're not downwind of that antler, especially a wild antler, they may not smell it. So I've had my dogs pick up like 2-3 year old sheds just by sight as well.
Wow. I didn't even consider that. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're covering more ground, obviously, with the dogs. The kids love it. They love, okay, I'm going to take this dog and go this way, and we go the other way. And kids know too. So, because naturally the dogs are not always by our side, we want them to range and hunt on their own independently.
Hmm.
But sometimes we still find antlers ourselves, right? Because the dogs are somewhere else working.
Hmm.
So when we do find one ourselves, we actually wait for the dogs to come back and figure it out because it's hard to replicate in training a wild antler, right? That's
Hmm.
no one's ever touched or anything like that. So
Hmm.
we don't take any wild opportunities away from our dogs. And even the kids know. My oldest son, he's 11 now. He found one 2 years ago now. With the kids, it's always the same way, right? Every 5 minutes, Dad, I see one. Oh no, it's a branch, right? And they keep going.
Yeah.
And that time he had just done the branch trick to me, and I'm like, no, buddy, keep moving on. And he says, I see one, and I look over, and it was a big antler. And he yelled out to me, we're just gonna wait when the dogs come back, and they'll figure it out. So even the kids know, and that antler ended up measuring 73 and a quarter, so a pretty
Wow.
good antler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
So yeah, I find we do it a lot more too. Now that we have dogs, we shed hunt more than we used to. So essentially we find more because we go out more. But Ontario is not where you're going to find 100 in a week versus out west, right? In Alberta,
Yeah.
you may. But yeah, we probably find 3 times as many antlers as we used to doing it with the dogs, but we do it more as well.
And you take all 4 out at once usually, or you just
Yeah, depending if
yeah.
we're going to do it multiple days in a row, we may only run 1 dog or 2 dogs. It depends on the property. But sometimes we'll take all 4 dogs and we'll kind of, my wife will go out with her 2 dogs. The kids will take their dog and then I'll take my dog and we kind of separate and have the walkie talkies going and kind of do our own thing. So it's fun. And the dogs will pick up. They'll find deadheads. They'll find all sorts of other stuff that the kids like to put in their backpacks. And
Yeah.
yeah, we end up with pails and pails of bones and all sorts of stuff.
So you said you use labs, but are there other breeds that are good? Is it any breed can do it, or what do you focus on when it comes down to a dog breed?
Yeah, there's all sorts of breeds. So we also participate in shed dog trials that I
Hmm.
kind of mentioned briefly
Yeah.
under the United Kennel Club, the Elite Shed Dog Series. So I'm actually a licensed judge as well. And I've seen everything. The last trial I judged, actually, there was a Dalmatian and it was trained very well. Like it was hunting well and wasn't hesitating, picking up and retrieving the antlers at all. So if you put the training in, obviously it's a little easier to make a lab retrieve an object and bring it back to you, a lab or a golden or a Chessie, a retriever breed type dog. But there's multiple dogs that in the shed dog series that are non-retriever type dogs that do very, very well. Border collies, Australian shepherds, Malinois, a lot of Malinois in the circuit too. Yeah, any dog can do it. That's what's kind of nice about it. And any dog can do it well as well. It's all about
The
how much
training.
training they put in and if they can train that retrieve into that dog, because that's an essential part of shed dog hunting with shed dogs for sheds, is that you want the dog to retrieve it. Because there's instances I let my dog range and they're still kind of under control, but they could be 200 yards away and I have a tracking collar and all that. And there's nothing that beats turning around and you see this big white antler in your dog's mouth coming back from 200 yards away. You know you've done your job as a trainer because your dog's confident enough to, they find that 200 yards away and they're not going to lay down and chew it. They're going to bring it right back to you. So which is really awesome. And there's a lot more benefits. I shed hunt sometimes just myself with 1 dog, and I'll walk the ridge where they bed, and I'll send a dog down into the creek bottom, and the dog will hunt there while I hunt up the ridge. So we're covering more ground, and I don't have to backtrack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's legit. That's more eyes on the ground too. Like you said, you're training them by sight and smell, so more eyes plus a path. Antlers fall in those creek bottoms or on the ridge tops or in the middle in between. You're able to cover that ground with your eyes, and then your dog's doing the same in a slightly different spot. That's pretty good. That's a
Yeah.
solid plan.
And the dogs do way more, they're back and forth and they cover way more ground than we would, right?
Yeah.
And they're looking and they're smelling fast. But
Yeah.
just in that situation, I've had it where I was wild shed hunting with my dog Badger, and I'm up top on the ridge, and then I can't really see down the way the creek is, but I hear him in the water, and it was a hot day. So in my head, I was mad. I'm like, he's just playing around, messing around in the water, and not even 30 seconds later, he comes back with the shed in his mouth. So he picked it up from the creek, which is kind of nice.
That's funny.
I don't know exactly where he picked it up. It must have been on the edge or something like that. But I heard him play I thought he was playing in the water, but it wasn't a very deep creek. So yeah,
Oh, that is pretty cool. A very broad range of being able to pick it up too. Actually, I do want to talk 1 sec about the trials. So the trial, can you walk us through kind of what does that entail? You've got a trained shed dog and you show up. What are you guys doing?
So there's 2 categories, the working class and the champion class.
Mm-hmm.
So how it works, it would be an area about the size of a football field, so 50 yards wide by 100 yards long. The boundaries are marked. It has to be, it can't be on short grass. It has to be like in the bush or in a cut cornfield or something like that, where you would normally shed hunt. So the boundaries of that course will be marked. Within that course, you would have 6 zones. So zones would be roughly 25 yards by 33 yards-ish to make up the whole course. Those zones are not marked. So within that course, 5 of the zones would contain an antler, and 1 of the zone would be empty. So the antlers are scented with bone clone shed antler training scent. And basically, you bring your dog to the line. There'll be a judge there. Once you release your dog, the timer starts. You have 15 minutes in both classes to pick up. In working, you pick up 4 of the 5. And they could be delivered to your immediate area of reach. So about 1 step. In champion, they have to pick up the 5 of the 5, and they have to be delivered to hand. Once the dog makes contact with an antler, the judge will indicate that. They'll indicate by saying find or something like that. You can no longer move forward. So let's say my dog picks up an antler 90 yards away in the back corner, and the judge says fine. Now I can't move. The dog has to retrieve to me until I can move again. So you're walking around with your dog. If you find an antler, there's a distance you must maintain from it in the rule book, and you can't cast your dog directly to it. You could call your dog over and encourage your dog to hunt, but you can't stand over top of it and call your dog and say, pick that up, right? So 15 minutes, the threshold for a pass in both classes. In the champion class, the top 4 times get more points towards their titles.
Wow.
So that's in a nutshell, but it's pretty dynamic. You're working the dog. And just for example, like there's dogs, and I've had Badger, my dog, has done it before, that run a minute 22 for all 5 sheds delivered to hands. So it's dynamic. When it's rolling, it's rolling.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen all the time, but it's fast for sure.
That would be pretty cool to see when they're doing it that quick.
Yeah, by the time they've got them all picked up, you barely made it past the first zone, right?
That is pretty wild. When it comes to the training, the age-old question of, can you teach an old dog new tricks? So if someone comes to you, hey, I want to train this dog to shed hunt, does it work better if they're a puppy, or can you just start training and work from there? Where do you start?
Yeah, so I think it depends on it largely depends on if the dog has previous training. So when we kind of brought it over here to Canada, we actually started a club here, like Georgian Bay Shed Dogs, which is the club where we run licensed events under. But it's a sister club to our hunting retriever club, so our waterfowl hunting club for dogs. So a lot of guys and girls that were already doing hunt tests with their dogs kind of transitioned over, and that was super easy for them because the dogs have a trained retrieve. They're used to picking up a duck and bringing it to hand.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those people also pheasant hunt, so the dog's used to quartering and hunting. So that's a nice transition for sure. But we have people that just have, they have labs or they have another type of working dog that have been a pet for a few years, and they feel bad because they want to do something with their dogs, but they're not comfortable doing the hunt test because they don't want to handle a duck or a gun. So they come to us and they're like, oh, we'd like to try shed hunting with our dogs. So one question I ask them normally is, do you have a game with your dog where you hide their toy? Because you could easily transition that into shed hunting, because a lot of people play that game with their dogs, right? Go get your toy, and they hide it somewhere. The dog picks it up and brings it back. So that essentially is what shed hunting is go look for that object. When you find it, bring it back. So if the dog has something like that, it makes it a little easier. But we've taught some dogs that were pretty old. It's way easier to train an older retriever type dog to retrieve, but if you go through a trained retrieve or something like that, it's always possible for sure. As for puppies, obviously you can model a puppy like you kind of want it. So I prefer having a dog from puppy, because you do your own obedience, you do all that, which is very important. Recall is really, really important, because if you can't call your dog back while you're shed hunting, is also a safety thing. We don't have any rattlesnakes. Well, we do have rattlesnakes in some areas here, but we do have a lot of porcupines or other animals like that. So we want to be able to recall our dog to us, right? So they don't get a mouthful of quills. So we do our own obedience and all that. And then we do hallway retrieves with the puppies as well when they're young. And we've actually developed something, little puppy antler ball, I call it. It's not going to be a marketed product. I'm actually going to produce a video on how to make it so people can make it and train their own puppies with it. So usually with duck dogs, we say, get in the hallway in the house that's pretty short and throw some balled up socks or a little wing or something like that. And we do that with our dogs as well. But we noticed one of our dogs was always picking up dryer balls, which are like wool balls. So we actually took a black wool ball and needle felted a white antler onto it and tested it on a few puppies now. And after a few retrieves, you can actually set the ball out, go get the puppy, and it'll target that antler shape on it. That ball and go pick it up without you even throwing it at the puppy stage. So it's really great to get that visual recognition kind of engraved in them young like that. Then later on, you can take the same ball and add the scent and throw it in some grass, right? Because we do scented drills like that with the antler scent. Yeah, from puppy is always easier, but you can start your dog at any level for sure.
Just starting with like the retrieving drill. I think that's the biggest probably problem for my dog is he will find it if we're looking for it in the house or something, but then he won't bring it back. He's
Right,
kind of stubborn, but that's probably my fault, just from the years of just letting him do whatever.
right. And that could be difficult, and from dog to dog may need different type of drills or different type of formal training to fix that for sure. But I would say, yeah, like even older dogs, just to start a hunt command, if they've never had a hunt command or a find the toy command, we use their food, their kibble, and we just throw it in some grass and give them a hunt command and keep repeating the hunt command so they get rewarded every time they find a little piece of food, but they're using their nose and kind of looking around. So I think that's the easiest way to start the hunt command. Then after that, we start building some antler drive and all that, so they have that visual recognition and keep moving on through our training. So our training's really based on building a confident dog, building their confidence up so they're confident they can hunt independently and like I said, find an antler and bring it back, even if you're out of sight. Really, that's what you want out of your shed dog.
With the scents that you use, which ones specifically do you usually do, and how do you use that per se?
Yeah, so we like to use Bone Clone Shed Antler Training Scent. That's the official scent that we use in trials as well. So in the US, they have a website. You can pull that up for sure. We're the distributor in Canada. So in Canada, we sell it here. And I've used different scents in the past, and I've gotten better results with the Bone Clone for sure. Like I said, like that moose antler, my dog acted the same way, or a wild deer antler, they act the same way as they would on a training shed. Obviously, they may not scent it as far away, but they do act the same way. Their tail's going the same way. Their body language just is the same. So I'm confident that that's just the best training scent for me to use. And we usually start them on a tennis ball is how I start them up, and do a short retrieve in some moderate cover or moderate grass, and then give them their hunt command for them to go find it. And then afterwards, we apply it to the antlers. So in competitions, it's applied in about 1 inch strips, one on the base, one on the beam, and one on one tine. That's how they apply it in competitions. We train a little bit like that, but I keep them in a training bag. I have a bunch of antlers I keep in a training bag, and sometimes I go a month without scenting them, right? Because there's so much scent on them already. If I'm training for before wild shed season, so if I'm training before wild shed season, I won't be doing a course like I'd be doing on a shed trial. That's a good way to test a shed hunting dog's skills. But in reality, especially in Ontario, we're not gonna find five in a football field size area. So we will scent a little bit of the base. I'll go put them out maybe a day or two before, and there might be a mile in between antlers because I want my dog to get used to look in, and there's not going to be antlers all the time.
Yeah.
And in that scenario, I actually don't give them a hunt command if we wild shed hunt or if I do a mock wild shed hunt, because I do in a trial scenario, and my dog just hunts as hard as he can until he picks up the five. Well, you can only imagine if I do that going wild shed hunting and I'm walking for 7 hours, it's just going to destroy my dog's confidence. So what I do is I make my dog hold an antler at the truck and then pick it up, throw it for them, and then they bring it back. I praise them, and then we just go for a walk, and they know what we're doing. right? I'm not carrying a gun, so they know that they can range further. They are smart animals because they range 10 to 20 yards when we pheasant or grouse hunt, but they'll range 150 yards when we wild shed hunt. So
Wow.
they know what we're doing.
That's pretty interesting. I like that. You said you just throw out the shed at the beginning and give them that, reintroduce them back into it. Okay, here's what we're here for.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
And then we
pretty
just
good.
go for a walk, and they know they may not, they're not going to hunt like as hard as they do in a shed trial. And I don't want that because I don't want to destroy their confidence. But I know that when they smell one, see one, it's going to get picked up and they're going to go over. So, when I was starting out, I was kind of stressed out, right? Was that a stick or was that an antler? And I'd walk back and it was a stick. So I'm like, okay, my dog didn't ignore it. But now I'm confident that they're not leaving an area. If there's an antler, they're not leaving it.
I feel like that's saying a lot that you have that confidence in them too. That is the same way when you go shed hunting or hunting with somebody else, you're like, did they cover it? Or if two people are glassing, or say me and my kids are glassing, I'm going to look over what they're looking at just in case.
A situation like that, one of our best days in Ontario, we picked up 9 and I stopped by the farmer's house, and it was actually late in the season. I think we were getting closer to May, which is usually when we stop. Like we usually stop when turkey opens and we turkey hunt a lot ourselves. But I stopped by the farmer's because he was outside and he said, well, you guys can shed hunt and if you want, but there was 4 guys here a couple ago. I said, okay, well, we'll try it. And we went out there with 2 dogs that day, just me, my wife, and 2 dogs. The kids were in school, and we picked up 9 in 4 hours.
Wow.
And it was like that was picked a few days before by someone. So yeah, it does make a difference for sure. Like I said, they cover more ground, and in that scenario, it was an uncut bean field, so they were really, really hard to see, but the dogs were smelling them.
That is pretty cool, especially after it's already been picked through or people walked through and scooped up some of the more obvious ones, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, because out of those 9, there was only 1 match set.
They were picking up different ones or
Yeah,
ones they could have matched up.
yeah. So they could have picked up the ones that were kind of between the field and the fence row type of deal, more obvious. But a lot of the ones the dogs picked up that day, I'm like, oh, I think the dog's hitting on something again. They're getting birdie, and yeah, they pick one up, and it's like I couldn't see it.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. That's actually pretty cool too. I think of how many times I go through just the nastiest sticker bushes and different stuff, and have found some that I never thought I would or I wouldn't have otherwise seen unless I was in this really thick nasty stuff. But how much nicer it'd be to send a dog through there and you're walking the tops or walking where you can see that, but then also they're able to see it at a much lower level. I walked up on a shed one time and I actually stopped while I was going through a bunch of bushes and I was trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to get through? Because sometimes you have like little lanes or you got to backtrack and go around this way just to get through stuff without having to go straight through them sometimes. They were pretty tall bushes. They were roughly 5 feet tall, very thick. I got to a stopping point where it was just completely a wall of bushes in front of me. Stop to think, all right, which way am I going to go? And I look down and then there's a shed just buried way underneath there. I'm like, holy cow, I never would have seen this except for the fact that I stopped.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, depending what kind of bush is, like quite often at their level, they can just get right in it.
Yeah.
As to us, we can't. We're just trying to squeeze in. So yeah, they get in there. And
Yeah.
I've had it before. Like I haven't found sheds doing that, but I've had it before. We get to a marsh area, which we shed hunt a lot of marshes, and there's a little island, and I know deer bed on that island, and I can't go unless I have a canoe or even in waders. I don't think, and they're labs, they love water, so I just send them over to that. They swim over, and then they go hunt it, and then they come back. So
Yeah.
I don't have to go, but that's spots that people can't get to as well.
That's pretty interesting. And then it's covering ground that you want to cover, but I need a different plan if I want to get over there. But they can do it in 10 minutes.
Exactly. I either got to go home, get a canoe or something like that, and then drag it a couple kilometers in the bush, and then. So yeah, a lot of the time no one would look there, but we haven't found a shed doing that. But I do like sending my dogs into some pretty nasty stuff or stuff that people won't go in.
Eventually it'll pay out for sure. It's just a matter of time.
for sure. And we all know that those are places where deer go to die too. So deadheads and yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So your website, you sign up, make a profile and stuff, right? And then you can get to access the resources, or how does your website and the training work? We kind of
Yeah.
touched on it a little bit, but just to dive in a little deeper.
Yeah. So the website is trainasheddog.com. So it's pretty much self explanatory. And so once you get on there, it's called the Shed Dog Training Community Guide and Drills. So basically, it's a program. It's a yearly membership. Um, you go in there, you sign up, and once you sign up, you buy the membership and get in there. You have access to an exclusive community forum. So that's kind of still building. People are posting on it, but it's still building because that's where you can introduce yourself. We're gonna have we have one forum that's training talk, one that is wild shed hunting talk, and trial talk as well. So we try to cater to every type of person that's joining our program. After you're in there and logged in, you also have access to products, and the videos are all in the products. They're included in the membership. They're just under products, and we have a shed dog training guide and drills, and then competitive shed dog training guide and drills as well. I would say they're kind of the competitive one is just for competition type of deal, but there's also drills that could help others. But even before, because I've had people get the membership and then they go directly to the competitive ones, but in the first product there and just the regular basic one, there's a lot of drills that are also helpful to build up to competitions. So, and how we set it up is we have a short explanation of, they're all in short videos. It's not, you're not going to have to watch a 2 hour video and then pause it and then go back to it. They're all, I would say, from, 2-3 minutes to like 10 minutes to work on certain things. So if you want to stop one day and I'll pick it up later on, you could do that. I find it easier myself. So I kind of built it like, if I wanted to train my dog, I would rather do that. And we have it in sections. And I think we're up to over 43 videos now that we've uploaded in there. And it basically explains the how and why we do it. And then every video, and there's diagrams and all that, what you need to complete the drill, and then we show it with the dog. And we've tried to match the dog to the drill. So a lot of those dogs, I didn't take my grand champion shed dog to show a very basic drill and look like it, oh my gosh, right? So I did use dogs that were kind of at that level and that we were already training to really demonstrate that, yeah, there's going to be mistakes and it happens. Demonstrate that drill and then move on. So we don't teach obedience in our program. We talk about it in a short 2 to 3 minute video, what your dog should have. But so many resources out there that we didn't bother competing against other trainers that have been doing it forever. We didn't want to do that. But, we do talk about, we want a voice recall, but we also teach our dogs to whistle recall and whistle sit. It's all safety stuff for us. So yeah, we've got all our drills laid out in there and all our videos on, basically, if you want to train a shed dog from A to Z, you should be able to just by doing some of these drills and following along with the videos. It's more of a guide than a program. But then there's the support system of all the people as well. And in February, we're starting live Zoom calls and recording. So I think as part of the membership, I will do probably one a month, 1 hour call, 2 hour call, whatever it takes. And then we're going to answer questions, frequently asked questions, or have different types of guests on our program. And that's going to be for members only. And then that will be recorded and available to the members to revisit at a later time as well. So we're still kind of building that portion of it and still have videos in the bank as well. But the meat of the whole program is there now. And we're hoping it's going to help people train their dogs to shed hunt. And I've had actually quite a few questions coming. There's quite a few members that are only doing trials. They don't wild shed hunt. Because we're seeing a lot of people coming from, like I said, they want to do something different with their dog, or they're coming from the agility or scent work world. Now they want to do shed hunting. Now that they've got a titled shed dog, they'd like to wild shed hunt, but they've never hunted. They don't know anything. That's something we want to address in our program as well, is to help people learn more about wild shed hunting. The dogs are not going to find them if you don't know, if you know they're not there, right? Because we get that question a lot. Oh, well, I went for a walk and there's deer tracks everywhere, but I didn't find anything. Well, you got to scout through the winter months and know where the deer wintered in order to, especially here, in order to have a chance at finding antlers.
Yeah, the general consensus. It seems like the program in general, it's broken down pretty good in consumable content, basically. So it's like not overwhelmingly, oh, you got to watch this 1 hour video for this one drill. You broke it down simple, and here's what you need to do. And then here's an example of the dog doing it.
Yeah.
Seems
And
pretty
then we kind
legit.
of talk about, as a dog gets more experience doing that drill, you can then, do more distances or add more antlers and do all
Hmm.
that stuff.
There's like plenty of options. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how we broke it down. Because essentially, there's quite a few things. Obedience in dogs is extremely important, in my opinion, but also for shed hunting specific. So you want a dog that's confident and can hunt on their own, that you also have control over to call back, that will recognize the scent of an antler, that will recognize the shape of an antler. And once they do recognize the scent or shape, will pick up an antler and bring it back to you. So you want a dog that hunts smart. Excuse me. You want a dog that hunts smart and efficiently and is confident enough to pick up that antler and bring it back.
You also mentioned a little bit about pre-scouting to know where deer are going to be to shed hunt where antlers should be. What would you say that included if you were to give out 3 tips for somebody that wants to take their dog shed hunting? What would you say to start doing, build confidence in the dog?
Yeah, I would definitely patience for sure. Be patient and believe in yourself and believe in the program you're following,
Hmm.
and you're going to get results in the end. I think we live in a society that wants results right away.
Hmm.
It's no different than, well, I shed hunted for 6 hours and I didn't find anything. Well, I've shed hunted for 36 hours and not found anything with 4 dogs before. Like, that's just the reality of it where we are. So I think patience and trusting yourself, trusting the program, and doing it right is probably the way to go for sure. I don't know if that answered your question, but
I think it did. Patience is probably the biggest one when it comes to that because like you mentioned, when it comes to wild shed hunting, you're not on a course where there's an expected amount of sheds and you just got to let them do their thing in the wild. So they're going to be wherever they're going to be, and you're just walking lines and, using your knowledge to get you in the right places when it comes to adding the dog into the mix as well to try to build that success. Like you mentioned, the repetitions and the kind of the technique training. And then once you hit the ground or pause on the ground per se,
yeah,
you're going for it, so it's just a matter of like anything else, repetition, training, consistency, I'm assuming
yeah,
is probably big.
consistency for sure. Very, very big. I think sometimes there's misconceptions too. You can go through my whole program and do the drill once and once and once, and then at the end say, "Well, my dog's not confident." Well, that's because yeah, I show it once in the video, but that's some different environments, different places with more difficulties. So that's why I call it a guide, because you can't replicate every single thing you're gonna do, right? But yeah, like if I don't bring my dog to a cornfield and expect the dog to hunt efficiently. If the dog's never been in a cut cornfield before, the stalks are going to be poking them, and it's different to be hunting in there. So I like to expose my dogs to everything I can for sure, and do drills in different areas. I think a lot of people sometimes just do it in their backyard, with the training antler and a little bit of scent, and they hide it in the flower bed, and then I've got a shed dog. No, not quite yet, right? So it's no different than waterfowl training. I've hunted with dogs before where you shoot a duck and then you got to convince the dog for 15 minutes to pick it up, where our dogs will do a 150-yard blind on a crippled goose or something like that, right? So you can have a mediocre shed dog, or you can have a shed dog that you could totally rely on. You shouldn't have to convince your shed dog to pick up the shed, because that kind of defeats the purpose. You want the dog to, so you don't have to go and convince them, right? So yeah, so one tip I do have, and it may not apply to everywhere in North America, but for us is we wait until winter's over before we get in the deer areas, especially with dogs. We don't want to stress the deer out for no reason. Like, I'm a big conservationist and hunter myself, and last thing I want is to stress out a deer that may already be struggling because of cold and snow and lack of food. So wait until the snow's gone. The only really exceptions is we do have agricultural fields like cornfields that the deer only hit at night, and they don't bed near there. So we may go there in the winter during the day because we're not bothering anything. But we stay out of the bedding areas and all that until winter's over, especially over here, because we get a lot of snow, and the deer survival rate is dependent on surviving like the snowstorms and the food sources and all that. So we don't want to push them around if we don't need to. We want them to conserve their energy to get away from coyotes and survive the winter.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like you
Yeah.
said, you're scouting and just kind of keeping an eye on things, and then try not to push them out before you can get a chance to go in there and look for something. And on the conservation side of it, just kind of being gentle on them in a hard time of the year anyways. So, and kind of waiting your turn essentially. Just either start clearing out, or the weather gets better or enough to where, okay, we're kind of out of that harsh winter.
Yeah, and we
Arizona,
usually
we don't technically get like the worst winters, but I mean, across the West, you have a lot of different numbers or a lot of winter kills, stuff like that in other states that, the deer go into the season pretty low, or stuff like that, and then they're not going to have a great winter if they're already kind of down in the dumps or injured or hurt. So definitely important.
for sure. That's one thing I like to, especially when I train new or I give a seminar to
Hmm.
new people, especially people that don't know deer biology and all that, is to, you may know that's an important, we have big deer yards here where deer migrate to winter in certain areas. And if you get in there, you really can hurt the population or hurt the deer because you're just stressing them out for no reason. So yeah, it's something we stress a lot for sure, because we do have people that are like, oh, why would you shed hunt with dogs? They're going to bother the deer. And we have to explain to them, right? Like, it's just
Hmm.
the dogs are under control. We wait until the winter's done. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that makes 100%. I've literally been out hunting and have seen somebody who wasn't hunting with their dog, the dog literally chasing the deer, and this dog owner is just letting them do whatever. But it's like, dude, we're out here hunting, we're looking at these deer. As a hunter and conservationalist, I'm like, you shouldn't be letting your dog chase these deer like that. Technically, it's illegal. They shouldn't be harassing the wildlife, and
For
you should
sure.
at least be trying to call them back, not just let them chase these deer up into the hills.
Yeah, and that's where obedience is extremely important, right? Because they jump rabbits while we shed hunt. They'll jump the occasional deer that they're done wintering, and then we whistle sit them and call them back, or just call them back. And yeah, and porcupines, like I said earlier too.
Yeah,
You don't want
yeah,
that
you're
vet
bound to
bell.
run into a lot of
Yeah.
stuff in the woods.
Well, yeah. Yeah, and you have to be careful too with traps, right? Trappers, or
Yeah,
so you have to have your dog under some type of control for sure, and be able to recall back, or fences and barbed wire. Usually if I see a fence in the distance, even if I have permission on both sides, I'll whistle sit the dog, and then I'll walk over and look at the fence and say, okay, is it safe for my dog? Or I might pick up my dog and bring him over that fence or over that barbed wire so they don't get hurt. So yeah, people don't think of that, but yeah, like, obedience is extremely important, and we teach them. Sit means sit. It means stay until we tell you otherwise. So if I whistle sit them 100 yards away, then I can walk over and kind of look at the situation.
yeah, I would see that being a huge key for sure when it comes to this training.
Yeah. Oh, and what we recommend is basically a basic gun dog program,
Mm.
right up to trained retrieve, or even directional casting. So T, if someone is planning to train their dog for both sheds and waterfowl, following a program like that until trained retrieve, and then we can implement the shed portion as well.
The sights and the smells.
Yeah, that's kind of what we recommend, just so the dog has a good obedience basic, retrieving basic, and even directional casting where you can send your dog into cover to hunt or for quartering as well. And there's so much resources out there too, and we'd be happy to point anyone out to a program that may fit what they want out of their dog, whether it's an online program or a in-person trainer. Certainly, you can get in touch with us, and we can direct you to what we think may be a good fit for you to get started on obedience and basic gun dog training.
Yeah,
And then
that's
after
great.
that, for sheds, well, we're going to recommend our program.
Start right here.
Yeah, and
No,
we're
that's
we're
pretty
trying
cool.
to help people make it more available to people to have resources to train their dogs. That's essentially what we want. Because when we started our club up here, we were helping people train their dogs, and life gets busy, and we can't train 100 dogs. So we decided to make it available to everyone and anyone. So that's what we wanted to do. Hopefully keep building, and we do a few in-person seminars and in-person training as well over here. Right now we're concentrating on the online program for sure.
Awesome. That is cool to see. I guess we'll kind of start wrapping it up there. You mentioned your website, but do you have any other places, or any other mentions that you want for anyone to be able to follow along with you, or the training, YouTube or anything?
Yeah, our YouTube never really kicked off. I think our most, I would say, used social is Instagram. So, and that's kind of how we linked up as well. So at Canadian Antler Dogs. So fairly simple. We are at Canadian Antler Dogs on Facebook as well. And then our training website, the community and all that is trainasheddog.com. And then the scent we use is Bone Clone Shed Antler Training Scent. So if you Google that, their website will come up and they can be purchased. If you're in Canada and listening to this podcast, then we can certainly link you up as well. There's a link to our retail website on our training website as well. So we're going to expand our retail side of things, but only for Canadians later on. It makes it much easier for the retail part of things to just keep it within Canada for sure. But yeah, and if you have any questions, definitely shoot us a DM and we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I like to keep my algorithm just full of sheds if I can.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's how I ended up coming across your profile, and I really like that dog aspect of it. I think that's super cool. So I definitely wanted to get you on to kind of run us through it and share your stuff and your stories. I really enjoyed that, and I appreciate you coming on. And I'm looking forward to seeing what other stuff you guys come out with and the training and watching Canadian Antler dogs grow.
appreciate that
Yeah.
for sure. And one thing I say all the time is they always say once you duck hunt with a dog, you don't want to duck hunt without one, or pheasant hunt with the dog, you don't want to pheasant hunt without one. It's the same thing for shed hunting. In our case, it might not be for everyone, but and a lot of people bring their dogs shed hunting when they go shed hunting, so may as well train it.
I'm gonna see what I can do about trying to turn my dog around and see if I can get him trained up a little bit, and then take him out. I'll try taking him out and see how he does. I'll update you if we get that far.
Sounds good. Just
Yeah,
tag us in the video.
yeah, for sure. That would be awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on. We'll wrap up, and thanks everybody for listening to Shedcast. So hopefully everyone gets out or gets their dogs out to shed hunt with them and find some stuff. So we're looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you.